This is Legacy Battle. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button on whatever you're listening on. I'm Michael Adams, creator of Legacy Battle. My panelists tonight from the Gridiron Battle Zone, Brian King. We've got the Director of Operations for the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, Scott Crawford here. Our special guest tonight is a former MLB outfielder, also spent 1 year in Japan. In the major leagues, he played with the Brewers, Blue Jays, Nationals, and of course the Texas Rangers, where he finished 7th in Rookie of the Year voting. He's got 220 homer seasons under his belt, 2 seasons in the top 5 for assists in left field. And check this out. He is ranked, think about how many baseball players there have been all time. He's ranked 82nd all time in fielding percentage at his position. We're talking 140 years of baseball. That's a pretty good number there.
Never even heard that stat before.
Yeah, that's a legit stat.
Maybe I should have won a Gold Glove. That was bad. I was playing. That's when they used to give them all to center fielders. Now they do corner guys.
Absolutely. So we got Outfielder here, Kevin Mench. Kevin, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Tonight's debate is going to be the greatest top 5 Texas Ranger outfielders of all time. As usual, we'll discuss 8. We'll pick 5 at the end with our vote, and then we'll have a Q&A for Kevin about his career. And we're going to start tonight out with Ruben Sierra.
All right, Ruben Sierra, 1986 to 92. He left for a while. He came back 2000 to 2001. Left for a while, came back in 2003 with the Rangers. Right fielder, was a switch hitter out of Puerto Rico. Nicknamed El Caballo, which means the horse. Sierra was brought up to the Rangers in 1986. He had a very solid rookie year, 16 home runs, 10 triples. He was 6th in the Rookie of the Year voting. He continued to get better. In 1987, he led the league in at-bats, sack flies, and he hit a career-high 30 home runs, had 109 RBIs. In 88, another very good campaign, 23 homers, 91 RBIs. And then in 1989, that was like truly a very special year for Sierra. He played all 162 games for the Rangers, topped 100 runs, led the majors in triples with 14. He had 29 homers. He led the league in RBIs with 119. He had the most total bases, best slugger percentage. He was the AL Player of the Month for June, made his first All-Star game, was named the Silver Slugger for outfielders, won the Home Run Derby, and took 2nd in the league MVP voting to Robin Yount. So just a heck of a year in 1989. Sierra continued quality production in 90, 91, 92, and then he was dealt to the Oakland A's in exchange for Jose Canseco, a great player. He went on to be dealt to the Yankees for another great player, Danny Tartabull, and then he ended up in Detroit in exchange for yet another great slugger, Cecil Fielder. But he struggled with injuries the next few years, so he eventually returned to Texas in 2000, and then after batting .291 and hitting 23 homers in 2001, he was named a Comeback Player of the Year. So Sierra's 6th all-time in homers for the Rangers in their club history, 5th in RBIs, 3rd in triples, 2nd in sac flies. He was a dangerous hitter, obviously highly sought after in trades, and really one of the best players overall in Rangers history.
So, Kevin, when I think Texas Rangers, there's 3 players that always come to my mind. Nolan Ryan for pitching, of course, Pudge Rodriguez, and Ruben Sierra. But is Ruben Sierra maybe a bigger name because he went to the Evil Empire after the fact and played there than so much from his time on Texas? And I mean, he's a multiple All-Star. What do you think of him as a player?
Ruben, we call him El Indio, the Indian. He could play with him here in 03. That man could turn on a 150-mile-an-hour fastball about letter high. He could hit it anywhere, right-handed, left-handed. He swung I think like a 36, 35 from the left and a 35, 34 from the right. So he could swing it. Man, he could throw the ball too, and he always had a smile on his face. He just had fun playing the game. You could tell just by looking at him. We used to bust his chops because he would dress up to, I mean, we're talking full on, just basically just right off the shelf type of mannequin type. He could dress for sure. So, but India was a great player, great teammate as well.
Do you remember any reactions to hearing that he had been traded? Like, I mean, he was the franchise player at that time.
No, because I was up in 02, and then he was here 03, as kind of DH, play some outfield, but most of the time he was just DH at that point. But he could still play. I'm sure he could probably still play today. I haven't seen him in a while, but he had all the attributes that you needed, that guy had 5-tool player to be able to do that, and the abilities and what he had. So I mean, he was a special talent, and a switch hitter at that.
Do you think they got a fair return with getting Jose Canseco?
I don't know. It all depends on where he was in his career, where Jose was in his career at that time. Because when his time in Texas really spent with the ball that bounced off his head over the fence. It's all you really see. He was here, So and then I think he ended up late after Jose left here. He ended up in Tampa, maybe.
He was in Tampa. Yeah, I'm not sure if that was the next team or not. I know he's with the Yanks for a while too, but yeah.
Indio is definitely one of the top 5 outfielders in Rangers history for sure.
Excellent. Let's move on to Juan Gonzalez.
This list, I mean, Juan Gonzalez easily for me is number one. 13 years in Texas, 1,400 games, 293 hitter, 565 slugging, 133 OPS plus, 32 WAR. I mean, he was so good. 2 MVPs, 5 Silver Sluggers, 2 All-Star games. I mean, you go on and on about Juan Gonzalez and how good he was. And if you look at the all-time rankings for Texas, I mean, look at this list. He's number 1 in home runs, RBIs, and extra base hits. Number 2 in slugging, OPS, and total bases. Number 4 in runs and doubles, and number 5 in at-bats and hits. I mean, Juan Gonzalez was just a stud in Texas, and he spent most of his career there. Obviously, he went on after Texas to Detroit, and then back to Texas, or then Cleveland, back to Texas, then Kansas City, and then 1 game with Cleveland to end his career. But he spent 80% of his career with Texas, and he's by far their greatest hitter to play for Texas.
So he does own all the stats. I know, Kevin, back in the day, there was a lot of questions as to whether he did it legitly or not. We don't have to bring that up if you don't want to, but the man could swing the bat. His fielding left a little to be, it wasn't super great, but what are your thoughts on Juan as a Texas Ranger?
I mean, like I said, I played with him as well. Watching that man swing the bat, one time we were actually in Toronto watching him take batting practice, and he was hitting balls like somebody would hit a 3-iron. The bat he swung wasn't a big head on the bat, and it was just absolute rockets off that facade in the first deck in Toronto. He was just hitting balls that basically started the shortstop and end up in that right off that facade. I mean, he could hit some BBs. I mean, I was at the end of his career, so I don't know how he was as far as, fielding wise, he was probably just, maybe an average to a little bit above average fielder. When I played with him, I don't know how he was prior to that, but I mean, that man could swing the bat and could drive in runs like nobody's business.
I know towards the end of his career, his body was really beat up, but he's kind of one of those guys that just kept like hanging on. I mean, what are your thoughts in general, like baseball players that they kind of play past their prime? Do you think they should move on and let the younger guys come in, or should they just play as long as they can?
I mean, to each his own, really. Some guys, just hang on to hang on. Some of them are, still in contracts they have to deal with. I mean, that's the organization's decision, really. If they're going to keep somebody that way, or is there something better out there? And that, as far as teammate wise, he always had a smile on his face. I was fortunate when I played with a lot of veteran guys that but they were fun to be around. They were just fun guys to sit and watch and learn from and see. And, as a kid watching those guys, the Juan Gonzalez, Pudge, Alex, and now all of a sudden I'm on the same team with them and watching the things that they do is just, I'm still a fan, but at the same time, now I'm a teammate with them, watching them, and, letting them, they've taken me under their wing and just kind of, show me the ropes and how to really, move forward my career.
Let's move on to Joey Gallo, and he might be the most recent player we're talking about tonight, but I was with the Rangers from 2015 to 2021. Joey has a very, very wild swing. Let me put it like that. He tries to hit the ball 500 yards or 500 feet every time he swings the bat. So after that time with his Rangers, he did move on to the Evil Empire, the Yankees there, and then the Dodgers now, but two-time All-Star and 2 Gold Gloves with the Texas Rangers. And he was in that 2021 Home Run Derby. The guy can hit the ball a mile. So in 2021, this was his last season with Texas. He led the AL not only in walks but also in strikeouts, which I find that kind of unusual. You don't usually find players that lead in both those categories. So that was interesting to me to see. He did strike out a lot in his career to the tune of over 1,500 so far. But he's got seasons in the top 10 for homers per at bat. So he's just like your typical today type player. You either strike out or you hit a home run. But perfect fielding percentage in the year 2020. And just on a side note, I found this really interesting. He went to the prom with Greg Maddox's daughter. I mean, that's pretty cool. And once got into a fight when he was a kid because some kids said there was no Santa Claus. So he went and beat the crap out of him. So I thought that was pretty cool. So that's Joey Gallo. So Kevin, as I kind of just mentioned, today's baseball players, it seems you either strike out or you hit a home run. Joey fits right into that mold. What are your thoughts on that style of baseball and Joey?
Baseball seems to be sinking itself nowadays. Guys are, if you watch Jeff Fry and I always had this discussion, throughout social media about these gurus that want to teach guys to hit like an Aaron Judge, like a Joey Gallo. Everybody's not the same, right? So they're trying to teach that. They're also trying to teach longer swings for when guys throw harder, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, I think this year only 8 guys hit over 300 in both leagues. I mean, the team averages were atrocious. I mean, it was 220 starting lineups. I'm looking at some guys. 249 was the top batting average for a starting lineup. I mean, is this baseball anymore? And Gallo, they played the shift on him. He's one of those guys that complained about the shift. Learn to hit the ball the other way, right? That's what it's about. It's about defensive scheme. You don't see teams complaining in football if they put 4 safeties on one side to cover one guy. Well, it's then make an adjustment. But that's the problem. Nobody wants to make the adjustment. They want to piss and moan and complain. I can't win, so I don't want to play, or I'm going to pout. And when I played, guys were surgical with the bat. You're going to play over, we're going to hit behind them. You're going to play that way, they're going to figure out ways to beat you, right? They're not the shift, whatever. That's a part of baseball. It's a part of sports. But now like I said, they're trying to change the rules so this everybody can participate in this and that. It's terrible. And you're right. I mean, you've got 17 inning games where there's 4 hits, 5 hits, and 40+ strikeouts. Gone are the days of the 20-game winners. At some point you're going to see 7-man rotations. 8 wins might be, and that might be out of the bullpen, might be your league leader, right? As far as, and that's what I mean. So it just, guys don't know how to hit anymore. They just swing, and guys don't know how to pitch anymore. They just throw. So there are some guys that are there. So it's that new school, which is about me, I do this, or the old school team. So you still have these old school managers. Texas brought in Bochy. They also brought in Mad Dog, Mike Maddox, and pitching, old school guys, and hopefully can try and swell this and get back to baseball, right? Hitting and runs, bunting. I mean, then why do we have 2 leagues now? If you're not going to let pitchers hit, don't have 2 leagues. Don't say American League. There's no more American League and National League, right? I grew up on National League baseball. I'm a Phillies fan. I grew up watching it. Learning. Pitchers could hit, right? At that time, they could. Some can't, but but they're not being taught now. So what's the point?
Right.
So, and it's just not even fun to watch, really.
One final stat on Gallo there. If you look at his career statistics, his batting average starts in the 220 range, and it just keeps coming down every year. He hit like 160 something last year, so he's just keeps dropping and dropping. But let's move on.
The line is going to be the gold standard for hitting.
200, yeah, probably. All right, let's move on to Rusty Greer.
All right, Rusty Greer, 1994 to 2002, all with the Rangers, his entire career, left fielder. In Greer's very first game and second at bat, he hit a home run, becoming only the second Ranger to ever do that. Ruben Sierra was the first. The best way to describe Greer is that he was an all-out team player, willing and unafraid to do whatever was necessary to help his team win games. I mean, he once put his body on the line to make a diving catch in order to preserve Kenny Rogers' perfect game. And this, sort of style really made him a fan favorite. Greer was very effective at the plate. He had double-digit home runs in each of his first 7 seasons, with a career high of 26 in 1997. He also batted at least .297 in 6 of his first 7 seasons, with a high mark of .332 in 1996, which was the 5th highest league-wide. He topped 40 doubles 3 times, 100 RBIs 3 times, and 100 runs 3 times. 1997 was certainly his best season. He was top 10 league-wide in offensive WAR, batting average, on-base percentage, singles, doubles, runs, hits, and several other categories, 20 in all. Unfortunately, Greer's all-out style caused him to be injured frequently. He missed about 250 games over his final 3 seasons in the league. He attempted a comeback in 2004 to strictly play a DH, but that never really ended up materializing. But still a very strong, Texas Ranger for 7 seasons.
I look at our list today, and I feel like he might be the best all-around player when we're talking all-around game. Kevin, just Rusty Greer, just a perfect name for a Texas Rangers player, Rusty Greer. I mean, that's just awesome. What are your thoughts on him? This guy could field, and he did the dirty things that you love from a ball player.
Yeah, I watched him as well. Played with him. He and I kind of, I guess, had that same style. Good old Thurman Clyde. He's what actually gave my nickname Shrek, and I still hate him for it. But no, Rusty could do it all. He could play. He'd probably bat leadoff. He could probably hit in 3-hole if you needed him to. Like I said, it was at the end of his career when I played with him. But he was another guy just had a smile on his face and had fun doing it. And he's definitely a top 5 Rangers outfielder all time for sure. But like you said, what he put his body through, and that's just a blue collar type of player. That's kind of like I said, how I kind of mimicked my game after him. And they said I'm glad I was able to play with him for a while here. Like I said, I still see a lot of these guys. They all live around here, so we run into them a lot.
And before we move on to our last 4 players, I do want to point out too that we're not counting any players that played for the Washington Senators. So this is Texas Rangers stats only. I realized that the Senators became the Rangers. And also Nelson Cruz was a DH. I know he played a couple games in the outfield, so we didn't include him in our list tonight as well. But so we'll move on to our next player, and that's going to be Josh Hamilton.
Yeah, Josh Hamilton, one of the most interesting stories in baseball. When you look how good he was coming out of high school, had a whole whack of drug issues and injuries and things that led to a downfall of his what could have been an amazing career, at least the potential for one. But yeah, he ended up playing 6 years in Texas. Hurt a lot. He only played 700 games in those 6 years. But when he played, I mean, he was a 300 hitter with a 516 slugging. He had a 23 WAR over those 6 years. And really, I mean, his 6th year was his last year in the show. So it was sort of like he played 50 games, so didn't really count too well. So the 5 main years he played in Texas, he was an all-star all 5 times. Won 3 Silver Sluggers and an MVP. So, I mean, when he finally got his life in order, he was one of the best players in baseball for what turned out to be a short time, but he still 5 all-star games. So for 5 years in a row, he's one of the best in the game. And, he won a batting title. He won an RBI title. He won a slugging percentage title. So he was a really good player. It's just the downfall of his, I think, a beating up of his body when he was younger led to, his body breaking down even earlier than it should have in his career. But when he was healthy, he was one of the best in the game, and obviously one of the best with Texas.
And being here in Tampa before we moved him on to Texas, there were a lot of stories about what was going on with his career, and the Rays really did him a favor trading him out to give him a chance to get his life right and be successful. Kevin, your thoughts on Josh Hamilton? In my opinion, he was the best hitter in baseball for at least 2 seasons, maybe more. He fought his demons. It's a hard road to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's Josh and I were drafted the same year in '99. He was the first pick in our draft that year. Played against him in Princeton, and then it kind of went by the wayside with I think he ended up in Cincinnati first for a little bit and then ended up here. He, I mean, talent-wise, I mean, he had all you could ask for. 6'5". I mean, he built like a linebacker. I still see him. He lives right down the street. I drive past his house all the time to see him, talk to him. Just kind of he keeps to himself now. But I mean, talent-wise, he had all the abilities. It's just unfortunate, of the what could have been for him and what he's been through. But he's another one of those guys that is definitely belongs on that list. And like I said, it would have been fun to see him play for 10, 15 plus years if he was capable of doing so.
And I think if we go back in time here a little bit, and we say that they had social media and the mainstream media that we have today that they had back in like Mickey Mantle's time, I think people will be saying the same thing, about Mickey Mantle. Like his career was heavily into alcohol. Who knows what else he might have been doing, but we didn't have the media that we have today. So I think he's a success story no matter what. I was just very impressed with what I know that he overcame. But let's move on to Shin-Soo Choo. So our only Asian player tonight on this list, born in South Korea, right fielder, 7 seasons with the Rangers, as well as being an all-star in 2018. He's got 799 games with Texas under his belt. A solid all-around player. However, he does fit into that strikeout category, which is surprising because usually the Asian style players don't have as many strikeouts, but he's got over 1,500 as well in his career. But he's got 4 seasons in the top 10 for walks with Texas. And as I mentioned, he's a good fielder, had a little bit of speed. He is 20th all time in hits for Texas, 15th in runs, 10th in walks. And unfortunately, though, he is 5th in strikeouts. But it's a tough transition for some of those guys coming over to from Asia to Major League Baseball. Kevin, you did the opposite. You went and played a year in Japan. What are the differences over there and here on the field?
The Japanese don't strike out a lot for sure. From what I've got, I'm not sure how that is in Korea. I had a buddy who played over there. I have to really ask him. So I mean, it's a learning experience. He was in Cleveland for a while before he came here. It's when I think he signed a 7-year deal. I think is what it was at the time, and it was one of those where I think they were comparing him to a Jacoby Ellsbury, and the numbers they threw out, the money they threw at him, you were expecting 100 runs, 100 RBIs, 25 plus homers. Somebody hit 300, and it just didn't pan out to be what. When you throw that kind of money at a player like that, that's what you're expecting, right? Because that's what arbitration does. They go comparisons to X outfielder, right? So that's what you're expecting. And as a player, that's as a fan, that's what you're expecting. The money goes here. That's what they're expecting. And it's unfortunate now that a lot of that stuff doesn't happen. These guys are 6-7 years into their career, as opposed to Mike Trout, who signed like 2-3 years right after, to be able to, to give him the longevity of it. So it's one of those. Shin's a good guy. He could play defense. He had a great arm when he was in Cleveland for sure. And then, I just not sure I think he's back in Korea now playing actually. So he lives over here down the street as well. So like I said, we see these guys all the time. So, is he one of those top 5 Rangers all time? Could be on the cusp maybe, but I'm not sure.
Let's move on to David Murphy.
All right, David Murphy, 2007 to 2013. Throughout his time in Texas, he was pretty much good for 10 to 20 homers, about 260, 270 batting average, 60 RBIs. In 2010, he helped the Rangers to their first World Series in franchise history. Obviously, that was a huge moment for the club. And then again, made it in 2011. Where they ended up being just 1 out away from beating the Cardinals. But yeah, David Murphy was there through it all, kind of a lunch pail type player, a reliable guy. Nothing too flashy here, but still, a pretty solid player.
And Kevin, I'm not sure Murphy did anything great, but he did everything pretty good. He didn't strike out a ton, and he could field. He could he could hit it for a little power. He had a little speed, and the guy could hit for average pretty decent. What are your thoughts on him?
No, you're right. He was just, a 6, 7, 8 hitter. He probably could lead off need be, but he could play all over the place. And like you said, he just kind of went under the radar type of guy, because David's just a quiet guy. Even when you sit here and talk to him now, he's just kind of low key, doesn't really say much, just went about his business. So, I mean, he was one of those guys that's just, be seen, not heard type of guy playing. But he was, for them when they were here, did what was asked of him. That's pretty much, what type of player he was.
His stats today, he'd be the best hitter on 20 different teams. So, all right, let's move on to our final player tonight, and that's going to be Otis McDowell, known as Chris Berman as Otis Young Again McDowell. So 5 seasons with the Rangers. This is a bit of a sentimental pick for me. One of my first pack of baseball cards, he was in it, and I kind of liked everybody from that pack from then on. So that's why I did choose him as my last player. He played for some very, very, very bad Rangers teams in the 80s, teams that were winning 60 games. But he's got 129 stolen bases, that's first tonight. The man had some speed. He's led the league in assists in 1986. He was very good center fielder as well. Very serviceable. Top 5 in range factor, fielding percentage, and assists and double plays turned. He was top 5 in all of those during his tenure with the Texas Rangers. He went on to Atlanta after that, but he's got the Golden Spikes Award for the best amateur player in 1984, right before going pro there. And he represented Team USA, and we know he's a nice guy. We had Dave Stevens on a prior show, and he mentioned that Otis was a guy at the tryouts for Team USA that was very helpful to him, and some of the other players weren't so nice to him, like Barry Bonds and things like that. So just a good guy, good solid player. He's our only speed guy tonight, which is something that's definitely missing from baseball. Kevin, your thoughts on Otis? I know he was very popular in Texas at the time in the 80s, and when he moved on, there were a lot of people that are disappointed about that. But what are your thoughts on him?
I don't remember much of Otis here. I remember more, I think, in Atlanta watching because I was younger at that point with him. We see him rarely. I think I've probably seen him a handful of times. I think since I've been here almost 20 years. So, as far as he was, you said the speed, and you're not going to see those guys stealing bases anymore. That record will probably stand. You won't see that broken. I don't even know what the league leader was last year in stolen bases. So I mean, it's just he was one of those guys that could set the table. And you're right, he could probably patrol the whole outfield. He could be part of the king in his court. He could be the outfielder if Eddie Feigner needed him out there. So, but no, he was just that's what he wanted. That was a prototypical leadoff guy. I think Otis was he a switch hitter or just lefty?
No, I think he switched.
Yeah, he could get on base, bunt, and do all that stuff. So I mean, he had the speed to do it, and that's what you're not going to see those guys anymore.
All right, let's move into our vote. And guys, tonight you actually can vote for one of your own, so keep that in mind. Brian, we'll start out with you.
All right, well, got to get Gonzalez off the list. He's definitely the best guy overall. So,
all right, Scott.
The short time, I'm going to go with Josh.
Okay. Then I'll go Ruben Sierra because he's just he's straight up who I think of when I think Texas Rangers. So Kevin, you get to add the last 2 on our list: Joey Gallo, Rusty Greer, Shin-Soo Choo, David Murphy, and Otis McDowell.
Thurman for sure. And then you said Murph, Otis, and gosh.
And Gallo and Shin-Soo Choo.
I don't even. That's a tough one. Why don't you guys vote on that? I couldn't think of that. I would.
Scott, you work for the Hall of Fame. Who would you take with what's left?
Let's go with Shin-Soo Choo.
All right, there you go. So Legacy Battles, top 5 Texas Ranger outfielders of all time. We got Ruben Sierra, Juan Gonzalez, Rusty Greer, Josh Hamilton, Shin-Soo Choo. Let's move into our Q&A for Kevin about his career. Brian, Scott, me, go ahead.
All right, Kevin. So April 21st to April 28th, 2006, you were able to put together a super impressive 7-game home run streak. This occurred rather early in the season. So had you been seeing the ball really well since spring training? And what was it like in the midst of that streak for you?
Never really thought much about it. I know they went back to the shoes, the whole thing about the shoes. So I had left Anaheim. I'd come back to get a shot in my foot, in my toe, and then go to Seattle. I think it was the last game in Seattle. It was a night game. I hit a ball probably 3-4 inches from going out. My bat broke. I ended up with a double because Nevin didn't score from first. And the next night I started the streak at home. And then, as the streak progressed, the media and everything, and I said, I'd just be glad when you guys just leave me the hell alone. I don't feel like, dealing with this. And I never thought about this, in hindsight, should I on that Saturday night tried to? Yes, but I wasn't even thinking about it. Like Friday night, we had an off day going into Cleveland. Set the record on that Friday night. And then I never really thought about it. Buck never even said much about it as far as, hey, go out. And I never even thought about it. But like I said, in hindsight, maybe I should have. But it was just one of those things where, I don't know. I was just trying to hit the ball hard like I was taught. I had to talk with Mattingly, I think later on in the year about it. He did his over the All-Star break. So he had the whole All-Star break with the All-Star game doing it. And then this year, Mike Trout, he's a South Jersey boy, tying the record in Cleveland of all places. So, it was one of those to be able to see that. And he and I, being the first right-handed hitter to do it. I think the record before that was 5 by Frank Howard. So, everybody shows the list. It's all left-handers and a switch hitter in Kendrys Morales. So, it's, there weren't as many, I guess, lefty relievers maybe at the time. So, as far as, the numbers wise of doing it, I'm not sure what the numbers were off of lefty, off the righties of the streak. I think at least one was off of left, 2 were off lefties maybe, and then 5 were off righties. So I don't know, but I never really thought about it. I still have the ball somewhere. I have number 7 here. Number 6, I think the Rangers have, because the one in Cleveland hit the fencing and came back on the field.
Right. Were your teammates giving you like that kind of no-hitter kind of treatment or whatever, like not talking to you about it or anything like that? Or?
Nope, I never even thought about it really. Just when something the media would show up, you're sitting there, you hit a homer, and then here they come, and like, I'm ready for you guys just to go away.
Go ahead, Scott.
All right. As we've said, the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame is where I work, and that's why I got my Canada jersey behind me underneath that's a Blue Jay jersey, just so I'm totally covered. And under that's an Expo jersey to come very soon. But Kevin, I always ask about different Canadians that these guys play with. You played with Aaron Mayette in Texas. You played with Matt Stairs in Toronto. You played with Corey Koski in Milwaukee. You got any good stories about them or what type of teammates they were?
They were always fun guys. I remember Aaron Mayette giving me a shirt and had the maple leaf on it. It just said "What about it" on the leaf. He would give me that when he was here. Matt Stairs, we always talked about hockey. I'm a hockey guy. I love hockey first. I've always been a hockey guy. I grew up playing. So, and then, and get a chance to be in Canada and seeing some of the Blue Jays guys that were hockey guys as far as the did commentaries, get a chance to see them and stuff. I just was always enamored, Stairs, he was just a max effort guy. He always had a big smile on his face, seeing that. Mayette was kind of quiet kind of guy. Koski Corey was more Minnesota when I played against him. So I played against him and stuff. So I played against like a Stubby Clapp. I think he's another one of your guys. So there's some other guys in the minor leagues that I knew. Andy Stewart, the guy who played for the Blue Rocks back in Wilmington forever. Yeah. So a bunch of those guys, but it's just different, though, the mentality that those guys have, because they seem to have that hockey first mentality as opposed to, right? Because I think when you come out of the womb in Canada, you're born with skates on for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Kevin, your trade from Texas to Milwaukee, we've had over probably 100 athletes at this point on the show, and I've asked a couple of this. Did you know that the trade was coming? What were your thoughts on being traded? How did your family adjust to it? And I mean, did you know it was coming, or was it a shock? That's something that I'm always interested in.
Well, it's always a shock. I mean, there's always stuff leading up to the trade deadline. You hear stuff, and what do you believe? So it was one of those where the people, they asked, what's being traded like? I said, okay, what are you doing right now? All right, pick everything you have right now, get up and go get on a plane and go to another city and start working again, right? It's almost as if you don't have time to process through it. You just got to get to where you need to go and move on. And I think the night before I had the 50,000th hit in team history, I think I was traded 2 days later. So it was one of those things where, it's an adjustment for sure, right? Because it's not a culture shock so much. It's just a matter of you've only known one thing, and then here you go. So those last few weeks of being in Milwaukee, it was just, I think it finally hit me where I just was really just all over the place. I think the next year I was able to, really settle in and start fresh as opposed to, and some guys are built differently too, right? Some guys can pick up and go right to it, just like a guy off the bench, like a Lenny Harris type pinch hitter guy was probably the best pinch hitter in baseball, just wired differently than everybody else. Go out, go hit, okay, right? Some guys I was a guy, I needed to play, I needed at bats, 500-600 at bats to, look at the numbers to show to do that. I couldn't just come play sparingly, once a week and do that. So it's, you said everybody's wired differently, and I was fortunate enough to be able to, and had a chance to play to put numbers up. So,
same order. Last question, guys. One each.
Hey, Kevin, at the University of Delaware, you had a very impressive career. I mean, consensus All-American, National Player of the Year in 1898. What is your best memory of your college playing days?
Oh, gosh, the bats we used to get to use those -5s, 33, 28 bats. You could hit the ball a mile. And the funny thing was, at Delaware, the wind blew out to right center, kind of like it did in Arlington. So I had the swing that was kind of tapered to that. We knew we were trying to hit a ball that way. Fastballs in. We were trying to hit that ball, get our hands to it, and hit it that way. And that was, kind of helped me through my career. That I think one of the biggest things I did. So we played college. We played doubleheaders. Played 2 games Saturday and 2 Sunday. University of Maine comes in. First game, so we only played 7 innings. I had 3 home runs the first game, 2 the second. So the next day, I had 2 home runs in the third, and then 1 in the fourth. So I went, I think, 11 for 13 on the weekend with 8 home runs. And I got co-player of the week because I had 8 on the weekend. A guy had 9 for the year. A buddy of mine from the University of Hartford. So then we go to the next year, we go up to the University of Maine, and the football field runs is in left field. So the 50-yard line is probably left center. But so my first at bat, I hit one. I think it landed on midfield. And as I'm rounding third, my third base coach, who just recently retired, he would play AAA ball. He's just laughing. He can't even stand up. He's laughing so hard. And as I come by, I look, and their coach is pacing the dugout, Paul Costacott, and he is just yelling and cursing at everybody in the dugout because I had just done what I did on top of what I had done the year before. So that was those days with those bats. You could hit it a mile with those things. So going to those days. I miss those days.
Hey, Kevin, so I work in the museum there. I see your collection behind you, and it looks like all around you. And the one jersey we can make out is Mike Schmidt, favorite player, maybe, I assume. Or
absolutely.
What else do you have there on your wall?
Absolutely. Let's see. The one up top is we had a throwback night here in Texas. The jersey up to the right here is my high school jersey. And then I've got a Steve Carlton in front of me here, but I only have so much room here. I've got another room upstairs and in a game room upstairs. Most of my jerseys are Philly stuff, Philly jerseys. I got a chance to meet Mike Schmidt here in Arlington. Got a chance to hang out with Steve Carlton a couple nights up at Windstar in the casino here up in Oklahoma. So, I got a chance to see these guys, guys I grew up watching and being able to be around them. And there's all kinds of stuff. I got all my baseballs, and I collect. I just love collecting. So I'm always been a fan first when it comes to this stuff. Even playing, same thing. Go still see these guys, footballs and all kinds of stuff. So I just love collecting. I'll pass this along to my son, and go along. So I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff. The vet right there, the picture of the vet, and then the last game at the vet, first game at the Forest State Center, which is now First whatever. I don't know what it is. It changes names every year. So I'm always a big collector of this stuff. I love it. I don't do it to sell it. I do it just from the nostalgia part of it. I've always been that guy. So I mean, I got a hockey stick back there, Pierre Turgeon signed stick. I got some bat. I got one of my baseball bats when I played in Cape Cod from the Barnstable Bat Company. It's still sitting over there. So I mean, I've got all kinds of stuff. I just love collecting things. I'm just that guy. But my wife won't let me put it in so many rooms in the house. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff hanging up. So I played guys I played with, played against, had them sign jerseys just to have them. I've got a bat rack upstairs. You see that bat rack there? It holds, the one upstairs holds probably 100 bats, guys I played with, Hall of Famers and different stuff. So I've got a big rack of stuff that I like to just collect and the nostalgic part of it. Like I said, I've always been a fan, regardless of what the sport is.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's great to see your collection and that you're a keeper of items. That's pretty awesome.
And the first Hall of Fame I ever went to was the Hockey Hall of Fame. We were up there in Buffalo playing a hockey tournament, and we got a chance to go to Toronto.
Nice.
So,
Excellent. So we'll get you out of here with this, but I'm going to make it a two-parter because I had two I wanted to ask. How'd you do your year in Japan? I just want and how were the cultural differences for you? And if I'm remembering correctly, you were on the Rangers when they brought in A-Rod. Was the team shocked that it was the Texas Rangers who put that much out there for a contract? And what were your thoughts on that?
as far as Japan, it's just a different. It's Japanese baseball. When I played, is like baseball now. It's so much information. Was
it like the movie Mr. Baseball at all?
If you see Mr. Baseball, that's exactly how it's run. That's exactly how baseball is run over there. Fans only cheer for their team. They don't cheer against anybody. And it's I mean, they're great. They're passionate. They're great fans. It's a lot to take in. They just throw so much information at you. And it's hard, I was only, and if you're not hitting 10 home runs a night, they don't want you. You've got to produce yesterday. And it was one of those where it's a learning curve too. You got to learn all new pitchers. Granted, there were some American guys, but they're few and far between. You don't see them all the time, so you've got to learn new pitchers. And it's a lot to take in. So, thankful for being over there. It was fun, but it just wasn't me. And as far as Alex, was it 2001? I think they signed him. So I wasn't up yet I wasn't up until 2002 when I first met him in spring training. But Alex, Alex looked after me. Alex kind of took me under his wing, and we did all kinds of stuff together. He has a little group of guys, and he really just because you never know the guy with that at that stature, the amount of attention people want. It's so I was fortunate enough to be in his little group of guys, just to be able to hang out with him. You go down there, spend time on the stay at his house, hang out with he and his family. And so, it was just one of those things. But talent wise, if you look at him, probably the best talented player that I've ever played against or played with what he could do. 6'4" shortstop, could throw the ball, could hit it a mile. He had the speed and he had the power to do it. And it just seems like the more pressure there was, the better he seemed to get. So it's just unfortunate they didn't have enough around him for those few years. So I'm glad he got a chance to win a World Series in New York and do that stuff. So, but he was, like I said, just a good guy to be around. Just like I said, I was fortunate enough to learn from a lot of guys, Hall of Fame caliber guys, and either pitchers, catchers, infielders, outfielders. So I was, Pudge, Alex, Juan, Raffy, Kenny Rogers, Oral Hershiser, pitching coach. Wetland was here. It's just the amount of guys that you're around is just, it was great.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you coming on. It was really good to talk to you. And I want to remind everybody, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, whether it's iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube, whatever. Hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great night.